Hello everyone, my name is Fraz Fazil Sheikh Advocate. I am a student of LLM, University of Bedfordshire. My reference number is 2120439. My subject is employment in global context. Today I have to give presentation on discrimination and equality, more emphasis on racism. The discrimination means legal aspects of unfair treatment of employers with the employees, and equality means practical approach of rightful uniform policies in employments. Discrimination and equality means to distinguish one employee with another on the ground of religion. Racism means black and white. Gender myth means male and female. Personal prejudice, nation, origin, and age discrimination. Besides, we can distinguish discrimination into direct discrimination and indirect discrimination. The discrimination and equality we determined on the confirmation of statistical evidence and attitudinal evidence. The following legislations have been repealed either wholly or fully or in part by the Equality Act 2010, Equal Pay Act 1970, Sex Discrimination Act 1975, Race Relation Act 1976, Sex Discrimination Act 1986, Disability Discrimination Act 1995 and 2005, Employment Act 1986 and Equality Act 2006. The Equality Act 2010 is the legislation. Equality Act equally treat in Employment and Occupation Directives 2000/78. This law requires that the UK legislate to prohibit discrimination and inequality. A consolidating statute seeking to harmonize all law dealing with prevention of discrimination and promotion of equality in society. Chapter 1 of the Equality Act 2010 covers age, disability, gender, reassignment, marriage and civil partnership, pregnancy and maternity, race, religion and belief, sex, sexual orientation. The prohibited conduct under Chapter 2 of the Equality Act 2010 states that direct discrimination means A person treats less favorably than B. Indirect discrimination means A person A discriminate B on protected provisions. Another duty to make adjustment, duties of a person who is responsible for the adjustments. Harassment means dignity, humiliating, integrity. Victimization means oppression, abuse. The Direct Discrimination Act 2010 Section 13 states a person discriminates against another if, because of a protective characteristics, he treats that the other less favorably than he treats or would treat others. There is a case, Birmingham CC versus R. He states justification is no defense. Means justification defense apply when the executor conduct is lawful, while excused defense apply the executor engages in wrongful conduct but is not blameworthy. So moving further, the Indirect Discrimination 2010 Section 19 states indirect discrimination of Equality Act 2010 applies the definition of indirect discrimination and extends protection to all of the protected characteristics with the exceptions of pregnancy and maternity. Indirect discrimination occurs when a provision, criterion, or practice is neutral on the face of it, but the impact of it disadvantages particular people who share a protected characteristics. If a person applying the provision, criterion, or practice can prove that it can be considered objectively justifiable, that is, it was a proportionate means of achieving a legitimate aim, then liability will not be incurred. However, the provision, criterion, or practice must not in itself be discriminatory. Section 27 of the Equality Act 2010 held that in case of victimization, the government has a duty to protect workers against rationalization after employment has been terminated by employers against who claim for sex discrimination had been successful. It includes failure to provide proper reference to former employee. The provision of reference for employees by the employer is covered by the prohibition of any discrimination on the grounds of sex. Section 26 of the Equality Act 2010 harassment. S and W were police officers seconded to the regional crime squad. S complained for sexual harassment by W. Once when S went for a drink at a pub after work with several fellow officers, the second also in the pub at the leaving party of another officer. It was held that these social gatherings involving officers from work either immediately after work or for an organized leaving party should be regarded as part of the employment relationship. Racism. It covered under Section 9 of the Equality Act 2010. Race includes color, nationality, ethnic or national origins. In relation to the protected characteristics of race, a reference to a person who has a particular protected characteristics is a reference to a person of a particular racial group. B. A reference to person who share a protected characteristic is a reference to person of the same racial group. Subsection 3. A racial group is a group of person defined by reference to race, and a reference to a person racial group is a reference to a racial group into which the person falls. The fact that a racial group comprises two or more distinct racial groups does not prevent it from constituting a particular racial group. Let I define the race. What is race? Race means being part of a group of people who are identified by their race, color, nationality, citizenship, or ethnic or national origins. If you are part of one of these groups and you experience discrimination, this counts as race discrimination. Even if you are not part of one of these groups, it still counts as discrimination if someone discriminates against you because they think you are. This is known as perceived race discrimination. Section 32 of the Race Relation Act 1976, which reads, anything done by a person in course of his employment shall be treated for the purpose of this act except as regards offences thereunder, as done by his employer as well as by him, whether or not it was done with the employer's knowledge or approval. Race discrimination in employment. It is illegal for an employer to discriminate against you because of race. This includes recruitment and selection, promotion, training, pay and benefits, redundancy and dismissal, terms and conditions of work. Direct discrimination regarding the race, I can explain it like it would be direct race discrimination if someone treats not as much as good as he treats the other employee in a like situation because of race. Or to substantiate direct race discrimination, it will help if we can give an example of someone from a different racial group who in similar circumstances has been or would have been treated more favorably than you. Racist abuse and harassment are forms of direct discrimination. One example of direct discrimination is where you are from a particular racial group and an employer refuses to appoint you because the employer says you would not fit in or the customer would object. It's also direct discrimination in an employer turn you down for a job because of your connection with someone else of a particular racial group. For example, an employer might turn you down for a job because your partner is some Afro-Caribbean. Is racism carry on? Yes, it is carry on. In the research, it reveals that during 2010, there were 2,036 cases in UK, and in 2018, it extends to 2,948, while in 2019 the total number of cases filed were 2,464, and in 2020 the discrimination employment cases were grew up to 48%. What is racial harassment? Infringing on a person's dignity or creating an intimidating, hostile, or humiliating environment through targeting an individual's racial characteristics. In a case Evida versus United Kingdom, the plaintiff Evida filed a case on the ground that wearing of visible cross must not be mandatory as he do not believe in Christianity being sick. The tribunal held yes. Thank you.